Hello, and welcome to Dice Dev. My name is Mark Hadley. I'm the creator of Slender the 8 Pages and the owner of Parsec Productions, LLC. Over the years, I've been trying to steadily improve my game design skills. I'm a frequent participant in the Ludum Dare Game Jam, and I have worked on other projects such as the puzzle game Chromaestro, the music for Yahtzee Crowshaw's game The Consuming Shadow, and more recently the roguelike package delivery game Fox Crate, itself an expanded game geometry. I've been primarily using Unity, but recently I've wanted to try learning a new engine for reasons. One of the engines I've been wanting to learn is Godot, and I apologize if that's not the correct pronunciation. I've been pronouncing it that way ever since the character of the same name in Phoenix Wright. Godot feels similar enough to Unity that I think I would have an easier time learning it than, say, Unreal Engine. And it's more suited for the 2D things I typically make. In order to help myself in learning Godot, I've decided to make a challenge out of it. Inspired by the series Roll for Sandwich, I have decided to take a similar approach except with game development. It works like this. I start with a table of options in 6 different categories: format, genre, presentation, setting, theme, and restriction, and roll randomly on each table to determine what to make. After that, I must make a game using those elements I rolled. In the end, I hopefully end up with a little completed game and have learned something about Godot in the process. A few disclaimers. I'm not a trained programmer. Most of what I learned was on my own with help from resources on the internet, so I'm likely not as skilled as someone who has taken classes and has studied programming professionally. I have a lot of passion for game design, and I'm a pretty decent composer. All the music you'll hear during this video is composed by me. But I'm certain I'll be making a lot of programming mistakes, so please forgive me if I do anything extraordinarily stupid during the course of this project. Also, for this first episode, I'm not setting myself a time limit, so I can take everything at a leisurely pace, giving me more time to learn the basics of Godot. In future episodes, I'll either set a time limit or maybe put it as a possible roll under restrictions. Either way, feedback on this is appreciated. Okay, let's get started. First up is the D8 roll for format. 6. Card, dice, board game. Next we have the D12 roll for genre. Also a 6. Horror. Seems fitting. Next is the D6 roll for presentation. 2. Pixel art. Alright. Now the D10 roll for setting. 5. Fantasy it is. Next, rolling 2d20 for theme. 3 and 16. That's escape and create. And finally, the D20 restriction roll. 14. No saves or progression, always start over from the beginning. Now that we have our elements, it's time for the plan, which I'm going to call Tower of Eld. In this game, the player is a wizard, living in a tower, who has accidentally summoned a terrifying eldritch abomination that will destroy everything. He must descend the tower floor by floor to escape. While doing so, he can search laboratories for reagents or libraries for research to create a banishment spell to use after his escape. He can also use laboratories to create potions or libraries to create scrolls, both of which will help in his descent. On each floor is a crystal that must be brought to a magic circle in order to teleport to the next floor. The game is turn-based, and every 3 actions taken will cause the infestation to spread on the current floor. upon escaping, if you have enough reagents and research, you win. Otherwise, you escape but fail to stop the infestation, aka the bad ending. And now it's time to start making the game. With a new project in front of me, I quickly familiarized myself with the basics. Creating nodes, attaching scripts, and linking nodes by control dragging into the scripts. It was all pretty straightforward, which I really appreciated. I started setting up all the variables I would need, and the first of the functions that would start setting up the tiles on the map, getting everything ready for a new game. All in all, a good start. I shifted over to the art, starting on the first sprites I would need. I've never been really good with art, but I was giving some effort with the wizard sprites I made, even managing to throw in a few details and shading them slightly. I was pleased with the end result. Though I got lazy in making the death pose, the old rotate and close eyes classic. I also started on the other tile elements needed, again managing to make a nice looking rough wall for the corridors. With this, I could start creating the tiles themselves, getting them all lined up and rotated properly. One thing I had to get used to going from C# to Godot was not having to specify variable types. Any variable could store any type, which was new to me since I've never used languages that did the same, such as JavaScript. I finished setting up some of the variables I would need, then got started on more functions. Specifically, getting each of the new tiles I just made initialized and randomized for the game board. Also, Godot doesn't require semicolons at the end of lines like C# does, so I just left them out. It felt strange at first, but I got used to it too quickly. Hope it's not considered bad programming practice. Either way, I kept forging ahead. There was still a lot to go, including a lot of unglamorous functions for doing things such as finding an unused hallway tile so that it can be turned into something else. Riveting, I know. But I mean, hey, it has to be done. Those empty rooms aren't going to turn into laboratories and libraries by themselves, you know. At this point, I also started working on the code necessary to begin moving the player character around. But all this movement wouldn't do anything if I don't have a place for the player to move yet, so I had to work on that next. Going back to art, I made a cobblestone background for the room tiles, making sure that it would tile correctly. Combined with the hallway and room tiles I had already made, I was able to test the movement, which immediately worked smoothly thanks to how non-complex it was. Satisfied, I began working on the HUD, consisting of action indicators, inventory, and status bars, which I then assembled in the project. I also worked on a few necessary particles, starting with the spellcasting effects. The particle system in Godot was similar enough to Unity that I figured it out pretty quick. It was pretty fun to work with, actually. I also took some time to make the game's title, keeping it transparent so that I could overlay it on the tower backdrop later. All those HUD elements I added had to actually function, so that was next. Linking them to the script and getting ready to manipulate them as the game progressed forward. Oh, mustn't forget the infestation spread. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but that's how coding tends to be. Just one, oh, what do I work on now, after another. It's like, oh, I should really get these particle emitters I made into the script already. But then it's like, oh, don't forget to add action counters to all the actions. Here, I'm taking a break from working on the main part of the game to get some of the title screen transition code started. Honestly, it's not bad to switch gears like this once in a while. I feel like it helps maintain my focus and keeps me from becoming too monotonous, looking at the same section for so long. Here, I'm working on a delay counter that will be used in multiple parts of the game to activate certain functions or set the game state whenever certain actions expire. Basically, after waiting, do this. On hindsight, I'm not sure how much of this I really need to show, but I assume a good number of you are appreciating seeing all this. If not, I can try to keep it more concise on future episodes. As always, feedback much appreciated. Now it's time to make each of the consumable items, the potions and scrolls, and trigger their effects when used. Funnily enough, I scripted the code to use the items before the code to actually pick them up in the first place. The order you do these in doesn't really matter all that much. Things were really starting to come together at this point. I had player movement, items and stats, and the infestation spread every 3 actions like it was supposed to. Infestations had an extra blank frame I could never figure out how to fix, but still looked nice. And now the actual floor goal, powering the exit portal. Basically, placing the exit and changing the visuals of the portal when activated. Things were looking great. I had the title screen, the ability to search locations, infestations, inventory objects, and now the floor could actually be completed by finding and taking the crystal to the portal. I also had blasts working to clear infestations, and a transition for moving to the next floor. I finally began working on sound and music, and I didn't realize until later that I had made a blunder. I had forgotten to record these sections with the audio. That's right, missing the audio on the audio part of development. Please forgive me. I will make doubly sure that this doesn't happen again in the future. For now, just trust me that this was interesting. I think it would have been interesting. Anyway, it was time to code the music controller, which would activate and deactivate the dynamic tracks as needed by the game. This was always an important part for me, even when I was making game jam entries, and that's making the music match the action to some degree. It's not that hard to implement, and it really adds to the experience overall. After that, I got all the sound effects in, got them all playing when they were supposed to, and the game was finally completed. To finish up, let's watch an example of the game in action. Thanks for watching. Links to the game download and my Discord are in the description below. If you liked this, feel free to leave comments or suggestions, and subscribe for future episodes. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.